Mehrunes Dagon is one of the 17th Daedric princes of Oblivion and the primary antagonist of the Elder Scrolls Oblivion and the Elder Scrolls IV. In Elder Scrolls Legend, Battlespire, and the Elder Scrolls Online, Blackwood. Okay, so by game we have Mehrunes Dagon in Daggerfall, Battlespire, Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, and on the online series. Mehrunes Dagon's fears are destruction, change, revolution, energy, and ambition. Mehrunes Dagon is the foe of all mortal races and has attempted to conquer the physical world Nirn many times. The common reasoning behind his many plots is his belief that Tamriel is in fact a plane of oblivion which is rightfully his. He invaded Tamriel relentlessly from the First Era onward. All basic information that can be found in the Elder Scrolls Wiki, but if you want to take screenshots, totally do so that you can read back and take notes and really take the information in. The most famous of Dagon's invasions of Morrowind is certainly the attack on the capital city of Mournhold at the end of the First Era. Dagon was defeated by the godlike Amalexi and Sothisil, but not before he destroyed the entire city and devoured the populace. Mehrunes Dagon was behind the destruction of Al-Sotha, where he destroyed the house of Sotha, sometime in the early Third Era. After which Dagon cursed the Chimer and twisted the pact between the two. This attempt of taking over Tamriel was stopped by a mere mortal. Brooding over his many defeats, Dagon eventually came up with his next attempt to conquer Tamriel. This attempt was to be known as the Oblivion Crisis. He had his mythic dawn cultists assassinate the Emperor and all of their heirs, but one was unknown and survived. The heir of the Blades and the hero of Kavach continually defeated him until the assault on the Imperial City, where Dagon was defeated and banished back to Oblivion by Akatosh himself. The actual plane of Oblivion. So Mehrunes Dagon's plane of Oblivion is called the Deadlands. It appears as a collection of collapsed towers with broken bridges on islands surrounded by lava, pouches of flesh spawned from an unknown source around the plane and capable of holding equipment. It has several towers that were used to house sigil stones during the Oblivion Crisis. Lord Sothisil visited Cold Harbor following the destruction of the city of Gilverdale and Valenwood by Molag Bal. He made a deal with the aid of more prominent Daedric princes, Azora, Boethia, Himmer's Mora, Hirsine, Malakath, Mehrunes Dagon himself, Molag Bal, and Sheogorath. The terms of the deal were that during the war between Morrowind and Cyrodiil, the Daedric princes should not accept any summon by a mortal, unless it was done by witches or sorcerers. A former spy master of Vivec summoned Mehrunes Dagon by fooling the rage of the witch of the Skeffington, Coven, and High Rock. The witch wanted to take revenge upon the Duke of Morrowind, while the spy master wanted to see Morrowind suffer after what Vivec had done to him. Mehrunes Dagon went further and destroyed Mournhold, the capital of Morrowind, in one of the most devastating attacks ever recorded by historians. Although Mehrunes Dagon was eventually banished back to Oblivion by a joint effort of Amalexi and Sothisil, Mournhold had been totally destroyed and the Duke of Morrowind was slain. A new city was constructed right atop the ruins of the destroyed Mournhold. Also in Morrowind, Dagon was responsible for the destruction of Al-Sothisil, which we've mentioned before, ancient home of the Dummer House Sotha and reported birthplace of Sothisil. It is also likely that here the forces of destruction were somehow involved. During the Imperial Simulacrum, Jaeger Tharn dealt with Mehrunes Dagon, and it rumored that Molag Bal assisted in some way, although he did not help in the following events. During the assault of the Battlespire, after the Miracle of Peace and pretty much the Doom machine was destroyed, Mehrunes Dagon attempted to invade Tamriel again, beginning with the Battlespire, where Imperial battle mages would undergo their final test before graduating. An unnamed apprentice teleported to the floating fort for his final test, only to find himself in the middle of the Daedric invasion. Through purging the levels and traveling to Oblivion Plains, the apprentice frustrated Mehrunes Dagon's ambitions. Mehrunes Dagon assaulted the Battlespire, a proving ground and bastion of Imperial battle mages. Tharn had to destroy the Imperial battle mages to solidify his rule over Tamriel and the Ural Septim's seat. However, the Prince of Destruction had a hidden agenda. He wanted to invade Tamriel. Since the prince and his Daedric army could not cross into Tamriel directly, he conquered and used multiple pocket dimensions in the Battlespire, which was the final gateway as steps to the mortal realm. One of the invaded realms was the Shaded Perilous, a realm of the Daedric Prince Nocturnal. Two of Nocturnal's lieutenants were gravely injured and suffered due to the invasion. Although the battle spire had fallen, an unnamed apprentice managed to banish Mehrunes Dagon to oblivion. The hero used Mehrunes Dagon's protonomic and neonomic, and then struck the prince with the Daedric broadsword of the Moonreaver, an artifact of great power that was forged from Mehrunes Dagon's own essence. With this action, Mehrunes Dagon's anchor to the mortal realm was severed, and he was banished back to oblivion. The battle spire itself was destroyed in the wake of the invasion due to the fact that the magicka anchors that supported the floating citadel were also severed. Another artifact worthy of note in this period of chaos was the Daedric Crescent Blade. These blades were used in the invasion of Battlespire by Mehrunes Dagon's army after the event. The Septim Dynasty declared these weapons illegal and thus made the blade highly prized among collectors. Back to the Oblivion Crisis. In the last years of the Third Era of Tamriel, Mehrunes Dagon formed an alliance with the Aldemir wizard Mankar Cameron. Dagon presented Cameron with his Book of Razors, the Mysterium Xarxes, another powerful artifact of the Daedric Prince, the principles of which Cameron used to found the Order of the Mythic Dawn, a Daedric cult devoted to the destruction of Septim's bloodline and the recreation of the mythic era in which they believed Dagon would rule. When in the mortal realm, Mehrunes Dagon appeared as a gigantic demonic creature with red skin, yellow eyes, and 4 arms, each one armed with a deadly weapon. One such arm had metal claws protruding from its fists. 6 horns adorned Dagon's bald skull, and his pointed ears were pierced with large gold hoops. His entire body was scarred and tattooed with ritualistic markings. Sharp fangs lined his jaws, and he wore an armed neck brace around his shoulders. His hands and feet were clawed, and he frequently used them in battle to stomp and crush his enemies. Mehrunes Dagon was also one of the Dunmeri, 4 corners of House of Troubles. The 4 corners of House of Troubles consisted of Molech Bal, Mehrunes Dagon, Malakath, and Sheogorath. These Daedric princes rebelled against the council and abomination of the tribunal, causing great strife among their Daedric kin and confusion among the clans and great houses of Morrowind. They are holy in that they serve the role of obstacles during the testing. Through time, they have sometimes become associated with local enemies, like the Nords, Akaviri, or mountain orcs. As written in the House of Troubles, Mehrunes Dagon is the god of destruction. He's associated with natural dangers like fire, earthquakes, and floods. To some, he represents the inhospitable land of Morrowind. He tests the Dunmer will to survive and persevere. Mehrunes Dagon has also made appearances in Skyrim. Mehrunes Dagon temporarily returns in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim for the questline Pieces of the Past. After the Dragonborn has acquired the pieces of Mehrunes' razor, Silius Vesuus explains that in order to repair the razor, the Daedric Lord himself must be contacted. The Dragonborn is then prompted to meet at Dagon's altar. Upon arriving at the altar, Silius quickly greets the Dragonborn and then starts the contacting ritual with Dagon. After the first try, he gets no reply, and then suggests that Dragonborn tries too. This time, Dagon answers, explaining that in order to repair the razor, the Dragonborn must slay the pawn on the board, Silius, in order to be his champion and wield the razor. After accepting or refusing, the Dragonborn hears some last voiceovers from Dagon, and then the 2 Dremora are summoned to attack. Using the PC version's in-game console, the player can spawn an actual Mehrunes Dagon character. However, this character takes an appearance of the standard Dremora, such as those found in the shrine. This model is likely used as a placeholder, as Dagon's actual model was never meant to be seen in-game, explaining the inconsistency with his previous appearances. Mehrunes Dagon has a huge following, and he also has very unique artifacts. Several artifacts have been attributed to Mehrunes Dagon, and all of them primarily evil in both creation and function. Chiefly among them are Mysterium Xarxes, the Holy Book of the Mythic Dawn, written with razors and forged in the fires of blood and death, penned by Dagon himself and given by him to Mankar Cameron. Its exact contents are for most part unknown. However, it does contain a passage on the subject of domination and enslavement, which Cameron reads to his disciples. Cameron would later write a collection of 4 volumes of commentaries on the Xerxes. These books were kept and read by members of his order, and prospective members were required to decipher a hidden code found in the text in order to prove their commitment to the Lord Dagon's services. Once they had cracked the code, they would be able to locate Dagon's hidden shrine in an event known as the Path of Dawn. As the 4th heir, the only known remnant of the Mysterium Xerxes is a single burnt page in the possession of Silius Vesuus. Another famous artifact of Mehrunes Dagon's is Mehrunes' razor. This mythical artifact was capable of slaying any creature instantly. This blade was highly prized among assassins. The hero of Daggerfall was once rewarded by Mehrunes Dagon after his service of eliminating a troublesome frost daedra with the razor. Decades later, the blade was recovered in bad condition by the Navarian, and then Mehrunes Dagon, in his shrine of Yazmedin, restored the blade to its former glory, a deadly weapon crafted by Dagon for his most loyal champions. It takes the form of a jagged dagger, which has the ability to kill a person instantly and imprison their soul in oblivion. The razor was bestowed upon Mizara Phaethon, who was Dagon's champion until he failed some unknown task, and both the razor and its wielder were entombed in Sundercliff Watch until it was discovered and recovered by the champion of Cyrodiil. After the event of the Oblivion Crisis, several groups were founded or formed to fight the Daedra. One group, the Keepers of the Razor, found the dagger and split it into 3 parts. Almost 200 years later, it would be recovered and repaired by the last Dragonborn. Some trivia behind Mehrunes Dagon. He was voiced by Jeff Baker in the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind and Victor Rader Wexler in the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim. In Mythic Dawn Commentaries 4, it states that Mehrunes Dagon was created in the bowels of Leg by Mangi and imbued with hope. His name is reminiscent of the Mesopotamian and ancient Canaanite deity Dagon, as well as the short story Dagon by H.P. Lovecraft. Visually, Mehrunes Dagon's overall design resembles Prince Goro and other Shokan race people from Mortal Kombat franchise very much. According to Todd Howard, this was just a pure coincidence. Mehrunes Dagon is one of those Daedric princes who loves getting involved in mortal affairs. In fact, he's considered an enemy of all mortal beings and seeks to bring destruction with him wherever he decides to go. Not much is known about Oblivion. We know that it's a plane beyond the mortal world, the opposite of Nirn. It said that Oblivion was a place for beings who refused to partake in the creating of Mundus, which encompasses the mortal world in Aedra and other worlds, a plane that rejects and looks down upon humanity. Mehrunes Dagon is said to inhabit a very special plane of that existence, that being Oblivion's Deadlands. Mehrunes' razor even spread mischief amongst the Brotherhood and caused chaos, a true power struggle because of its embodied power. Each Daedric prince will often choose a champion to do their bidding in the mortal world. Mehrunes Dagon, although his looks down upon mortals and wants to constantly invade and hurt those in Nirn, it's not different in regards to who he chooses. He once froze his champion. Earlier we mentioned Dagon's highly coveted dagger, the Razor. This weapon has actually appeared in a few games before being available in Skyrim. In Daggerfall, the hero of Daggerfall is given Mehrunes' razor by Dagon himself after they've slain a frost daedra. In Oblivion, the hero of Kvatch can also find the Mehrunes' razor and recover it within a tomb located in Sundercliff Watch. It also is here that Dagon's previous champion is frozen alive and must be slain in order to unearth the razors successfully. Mehrunes Dagon sounds terrifying, and probably for good reason. It's believed that he's actually inspired by a few different references. Another fun fact, the only way to reach Oblivion from Nirn is through Oblivion gates that are scattered throughout the game world. The chances for an Oblivion gate to spawn is mostly determined by what point in the main storyline you have reached. For example, there's a 0% chance for an Oblivion gate to spawn in front of Bruma at the very beginning of a game, but a 100% chance for a spawn during the quest Bruma Gate. However, there are some individuals who have the technology and arcane ability to construct a gate to Oblivion. Vampires in specific clans have been known to instruct soul Karens in their studies. They're also able to sustain the portal using soul gems, shards. Finally, ground bone meal and void salts also were sampled with their own blood to close a gate. In order to close an Oblivion gate, a hero Kvatch must first enter into the plane of oblivion there. A sigil stone must be removed from the sigillium sanguis, a room which is always at the topmost part of the largest tower in that particular area. Afterwards, the hero and their companions safely teleport back to Tamriel. The Argonian race can prove to be a bit ritualistic. They also partake in Mehrunes Dagon's following. As outlined by the glyphs with Mystrium Xarxes, Min and Mer can enter oblivion with the aid of a Daedric artifact in the blood of Aedra entity. Euroseptum used Daedric occultism to basically open the Oblivion gates in Oblivion 4, or should I say the fourth installment in the Elder Scrolls series. According to Zeph-Ija Hagia, according to her transcripts, the conjurer was able to enter a deep trance-like meditative state where he could mentally travel through the planes of oblivion without his physical body entering the realms. The text also describes that the Sidric Order and the Dwemer developed powerful telepathic magic that allowed them to communicate with beings in oblivion, as well as astral project there. Specifically, the Sidrics knew of a place called the Dreaming Cave, where travel into oblivion was made possible without an oblivion gate. Many others and people traversed the veil and entered the realms of the Dreaming Cave. Can you believe that Daedra can have children? While they're not his biological spawn, Dagon considers Zilvia Moth and Phaedra Shardia as his adopted children. There is a belief that Mehrunes Dagon is allied with Hirsine, though Lyrnith, the Fool Killer, claims that if such an arrangement existed, it would be obscure outside their own circle. Enemies of the Prince Destruction include Ebon Arm, Akatosh, and Molag Bal, while whom Dagon shares a bitter rivalry. Do have been known to meddle in each other's schemes when the opportunity arises. It's also rumored that Prince hates Nocturnal. Dagon's priotomic is Le Caligo, and his neonomic is Dajal Kaliho Dahabi Efhiza Pe. The prince's summoning day coincides with the warrior's festival, the 20th of sun's dusk. In his own words, "When I walk the earth again, the faithful among you shall receive your reward, to be set above all other mortals forever. As for the rest, the weak shall be windwowed, the timid shall be cast down, the mighty shall tremble at my feet and pray for pardon." Dagon was originally created to be a prince of good and was imbued within Oblivion's most precious assets, hope. The prince began a revolution, threw down Lig, and cracked his face. He let the lowly slaves know free will and stirred them to violence against their masters. His Red Legion overthrew the tyrant Druffs, toppled the towers of Chumali Garjaga, destroyed great cities, and slaughtered the Templars of the upstart. Hope spread like a brush fire as the world was set free. In most cultures, Mehrunes Dagon is little more than a god of bloodshed and betrayal. Dagon reveals in destruction on a grand scale, from mass murder to deaths resulting in floods or earthquakes. He leaves a swath of devastation whenever he manifests. In fact, he even attempted to summon the prince, frequently fatal for the conjurer and any bystanders. Trafficking with Dagon or his cultists is abhorred by most of Tamriel, and is outright illegal in many places, where the punishment can be as severe as death. His displays of power attract his followers, as various occults associate themselves with him and assert his influence in Nirn. For some reason, he's a very, very, very important deity in Morrowind, where he's the second of, as we mentioned before, the four corners of House of Troubles. He has vested interest in showing fragrant displays of his power, which I guess kind of is what his followers do. Worshippers of Dagon tend to be arsonists, setting buildings, animals, and even people on fire. Signs of cultist activity include unusual tremors and an uncharacteristic lack of rain, sudden onsets of unseasonably heavy rain as they attempt to incite natural disasters. Those who worship the prince tend to bear the symbol of a fiery, rising sun. Dagon's cultists have a tendency to plan in deep, long, ongoing conspiracies. As we mentioned before, The Aragonians take a particular interest in the Daedric prince. The Zal Shuan tribe consists of Naga worshippers of chaos and death, and see Mehrunes Dagon as the true Ag-child of Sithis. This title can be understood from a pre-Duskfall perspective, when the old ruling class of Black Marsh believed that Sithis was a malevolent, destructive force, much like Dagon. The Zal Shuan embrace only the darkest, cruelest beliefs and scorn the rest as weakness. Thus, they sacrifice outsiders and other Argonians alike in hopes of one day summoning Mehrunes Dagon to bring blood and destruction across Black Marsh and eventually the entire world. In Morrowind, of course, Mehrunes Dagon is the god of destruction and the king of blood. It is said that when the prophet Valif led the Chimer to Resdan, now in Morrowind, they were joined by a number of Daedric ancestral spirits. Among them was Mehrunes Dagon. At first, these Daedric lords were worshipped as gods. However, when the Tribunal came to power in the early First Era, Daedric were venerated as lesser spirits subservient to the Al-Simvi. Not content with this power shift, Malakath, Malakbal, Sheogorath, Dagon rebelled against the temple and, of course, caused much strife amongst the great houses. These rebelled Daedra of Bad Daedra became the four corners of the House of Troubles, who tempted the Dunmer away from the orthodoxy. Nevertheless, the Dunmer considered these four to be holy and that they serve as testing gods who must be appeased. Dagon represents Morrowind's near inhospitable terrain and also tests the Dunmer's will to prosper. According to legend, Mehrunes Dagon once threatened to heave a large rock at Dunmer of Margan. Vivek outwitted the prince, taunting Dagon and making himself the rock's target. The rock itself was enshrined there, becoming known as the Magic Rock of Margan, and it became a pilgrimage site. Pilgrims would have to recreate the situation during a pilgrimage. A Dremora named Anhedra was bound by Vivek to fill Dagon's role and would have to endure taunts from pilgrims and try to harm them while they were protected by a powerful blessing. Another legend involves a duel between Vivek and the Prince of Destruction, the latter of whom was unarmed. Rather than dishonoring himself by fighting an unarmed opponent, Vivek offered Dagon his own silver longsword. The prince was so impressed by this honorable act of chivalry. The temple claims that although they are enemies, the Dremora share a bond of respect and courtesy with the followers of the Tribunal. So as a part of the pilgrimages of 7 Graces, pilgrims seeking to join the Tribunal Temple must visit the Shrine of Courtesy in Vivek City's Puzzle Canal. A Dremora named Kratz was bound here, filling the role of Vivek. The pilgrim must courteous and offer a silver longsword to Kratz, who pretends and represents himself as Mehrunes Dagon. Would it surprise you to know that the Khajiit also have followings and ties to Mehrunes Dagon? In the Khajiit pantheon, Mehrunes Dagon is Mehrunes, also spelled Mehrunes, Mehrunnez, who is also called Dagon, Daegon, the fire cat and the demon cat. One of the children of Fatima's second litter, Mehrunes was given the nickname Jakajit, kitten, and Ta'agra by his mother due to his wild, destructive nature. Similarly, the Khajiit often depict Mehrunes as a destructive kitten. According to pre-Redot's text, at some point in time, Mehrunes was exiled by his father, Nor. Rather than journeying through the many paths of time, Mehrunes chose to venture into the great darkness. There he was defeated by the demon king Moloch and tortured until the world was created. Ultimately, Mehrunes was freed by Moloch's wife, who used his destructive nature to attack the lunar lattice. Mehrunes enjoyed this and became a kinslayer, and has since been known as the demon Dagon. The duality of Khajiit worship of the fire cat can be seen as early as Elsewhere's history. During the Dralic Bray's reign, cultists of Mehrunes burned down the Grand Archive and Cornereth, which contained the province's records from the Mythic era. However, despite his worship of the Prince of Destruction, the warlord went through great lengths to preserve the remaining texts and hide them from across Elsewhere. He placed them in smaller vaults and archives. Dralic Bray showcased an ambition much like Mehrunes, conquering Enquina and the surrounding territories, with some areas erected in Dagon's name. The Reachman. To the Reach folk, Mehrunes Dagon is the spirit of ambition and destruction, and is known as the Lord of Ambition. Life in the Reaches is harsh, and its inhabitants always strive to improve. This drive to become greater eventually leads to some turning to Mehrunes Dagon. Now we move on to another giant, a cult that was formed in Dagon's name, the Order of the Waking Flame. The Order of the Waking Flame embraced Sister Seldina's beliefs. The Mehrunes Dagon was created by Magnagy. I always say it wrong. To unmake the flawed creation of Mundus in accordance to Magnus' plans. To them, Mundus is a place of pain and suffering. Thus, they looked to Dagon to move past their mortal perils, hoping that he would purge the impurities of existence so that it may emerge anew. This contrasts the ideas of Lilith, who believes that when Magnagy fled, they spat on the convection of the Aedra that remained to finish creating Mundus. And Dagon's emergence in sphere may be reflective of the destruction caused by their abandonment. The cult's high chronicler documented epics involving Mehrunes Dagon. One teaches that Dagon does not back away from bargains, dominion over fire and flood. The clash between the Dagon's flames and Erebeth's tidal spell purged the local blighted wildlife, ensuring that lush flora would rise from the ashes. Another story tells of the prince invading Cold Harbor to rescue the enslaved souls of his followers from Molag Bal. The true believers that refused to bend instead took it upon themselves to engage in subterfuge, thwarting Molag Bal and his minions whenever they could. Mehrunes Dagon rewarded those that endured with the means of their escape, a powerful explosion that rattled Cold Harbor. The destruction allowed Dagon to manifest within the realm where he engaged in combat with Molag Bal. Through Dagon's mirror avatar was not able to defeat Molag Bal in his full power. This distraction bought enough time for his followers to escape the Deadlands. Mehrunes Dagon did not launch an invasion into Tamriel after the Soul Burst. Queen Irene, her Ultimary Dominion, High Kind Lady Astray, donned the role of leader of Ultimary separatists known as the Veiled Herentons. In her desperate attempt to impede the pass of Queen Irene and her troops to first hold, she made a pact with Dagon. Astray summoned the Daedra from the Deadlands, and Dawn breaks abandoned mine. The Daedra set the town alight and murdered its citizens until the first Adorian Marines intervened and organized an evacuation. The Marines managed to stop the hordes from spreading across the area, and the Eye of the Queen came and defeated the Dremor that orchestrated the assault. Per her agreement with Mehrunes Dagon, High King Lady Astray unleashed more Daedra upon Tornan, a holy site of the 8 divines in the north. She then moved on to her ultimate target, the city of Firsthold. Here she was let into the city by its ruler, High Kinlord Raylis, who remained oblivious to her true nature. Once inside, she opened 4 oblivion gates across the city, allowing her Daedric army to lay siege to Firsthold and kidnap the Kinlord. Astray was slain by a hero when the oblivion gates were closed, but most of the Firsthold was left in ruins. Later that year, Dagon's Razor Master, Erthas, attacked the Bosmere village of Whisper Grove. The forest was set ablaze, the village was overrun by Dagonites, and the port of the Deadlands was open to stir the chaos. The Undaunted were hired by the village's leaders, Galerian, to slay the Dagonites and push back the Daedra. After Erthas' death, Mehrunes Dagon himself offered to seal the portal if Galerian agreed to meet with him in the Deadlands. Galerian agreed, and the portal was shut. Mehrunes Dagon gave Galerian the means to survive in the Deadlands as a Razor Master, namely his eponymous Razor. I know I didn't cover all the bases, but I hope you guys get the gist of who Mehrunes Dagon is with a little bit of his history and background. If you want to check everything out, again, check out Google Elder Scrolls Wiki. See you guys again soon for hopefully more videos. Till then, I'll be staying in Tamriel and drawing my tune. Alright guys, so it's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got some knowledge from it. If you would like to see more videos, please leave some comments. You can like, share, subscribe. Follow us on any of our social medias. Hashtag DaMouseOfInk. Quick way to find us on Google. Again, I appreciate you sitting through this very long basically bio of Mehrunes Dagon. All this information can be found on Google, on the Elder Scrolls wiki. All you have to do is check it out, and any other similar videos to this, I'm pretty sure they're doing it tell all on Mehrunes Dagon. See you guys.
I outrank you. I can destroy you. So I suggest you fall in line, because I am still your supreme.